Welcome to Jamie TV and thank you very much for tuning in. I started working on a new track recently, which I've already featured in a video linked above. It's going to be kind of a hard-hitting cyberpunk sort of a track with some metal guitars. I've recorded the bass and the drums and I've laid out a whole arrangement for it, except I've left a gap in the middle of the track because I wanted to have a change there, something different, but I wasn't sure what, so I just left an 8-bar gap. I've been thinking about it and I think I want an atmospheric section there, maybe a bit eerie sounding, maybe a little bit grainy perhaps. I've picked out a few apps that I think are going to help me create this section. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop pissy panting about and crack on with it. I'll leave the cameras rolling, share some of my process with you. It'll give me a chance to show you some of these apps. Maybe we'll capture some magic, maybe I'll make a total arse of myself. Let's find out. So here's my project in Cubasis 3 and you can see the gap that I've left down here for me to insert 8 bars of whatever. This very colourful track down here, this is a MIDI track that has no MIDI information in it. I'm just using it just to detail what's supposed to go where in my project, just as a sort of a visual reminder. You'll see also that I told a lie. I do actually already have something in this 8-bar section. I made a drum loop and it sounds like this. I didn't actually lie, I'm just an incompetent, senile, stupid old hippie. I've added a MIDI track, I've added BeatHawk as an AUV3, and in BeatHawk I've got a completely empty project to start playing with. In browser you'll see over here, these are the in-app purchases that I have, and down here these are the ones I don't have yet. I'm quite curious about this one. That looks very interesting, but that's me wandering off the plot. Up here, I just want to click on choirs and show you this. If I click on this vocals folder, you'll see the choirs are divided into children, female, male, and mixed choirs. So if I click on children, then we click over here and we get an example of what that particular one will sound like. My favourite though are the mixed choirs, and these two down here I've used a lot already in my cyberpunk tracks. Have a listen to a quick example. Now I'm thinking that some of these sounds in dark atmospheres might be ideal for what I'm looking for. You'll see that they're divided into atmospheres, melodics and pads. Let's click on atmospheres. I'm going to play you a few examples so you can see what I mean. I'm thinking I definitely have to use that one. So if I click here, you'll see this pad here is selected, and then I go to load. You can see that that's loaded in there. Now if I come out of here and press on this pad, I can play that sound, but if I go to this icon here, now I have that sound over a whole keyboard. Now if I go to Cubasis and make sure that my track is armed, I should be able to play that with it. Oh, I don't have a keyboard plugged in. Just a moment. eBay, 25 quid with delivery. Old as the hills, but still works. That's pretty awesome. See what it sounds like with that drum loop. This tune is written in G-flat Phrygian, but I'm playing an E-flat tuned bass, so for now I've put one long drone note on F in the MIDI for this sound. Okay, while I explain this bit, have a listen to some of these great sounds in BeatHawk's Ambient IAP. Now I want to choose one of these ambient sounds to use alongside my drone, but here's the snag. If I choose a sound and load it onto another pad, I can't send MIDI to multiple pads in BeatHawk from Cubasis 3, or as far as I'm aware, from any other iOS DAW. I can only play the selected pad. I could put MIDI into BeatHawk's own sequencer and play multiple sounds at once, but then I can't see the MIDI in my Cubasis project, and I can't use any third-party effects on anything but the selected sound, because BeatHawk itself is not a host, and is not multi-bus sound. I could arrange in BeatHawk's own sequencer and solo each sound and export to real audio one by one, but I find it's easier just to add another MIDI track to Cubasis and another instance of BeatHawk. Now we need some Fluss. Fluss is a granular synth with a unique interface that embraces all that is good about the iOS touchscreeny thing. It was made by Bram Bose, popular iOS developer and one of my favourite YouTubers, Heimbach. If you don't know what a granular synth is, don't be afraid. It's very simple. It's basically, you take some source audio, it could be one of your tracks, it could be a bit of beautiful piano playing, it could be a recording of a particularly awesome fart. You stick that source audio into the synth and it splits the audio up into grains and then gives you control over how those grains are played back, giving you the ability to make something new out of your particularly awesome fart. Now, the uniqueness of the interface has frightened a few people off, you know, we fear change, but it's actually very straightforward. It's very simple. Don't be afraid, I'm going to show you exactly how to use it. But first, have a listen to how I've already used Fluss in one of my previous cyberpunk tracks. If you want to import your own WAV into Fluss, you do that over here. But for this little experiment, I want to play around with one of the presets that Heimbach provided. I can't pronounce the name of it, but I think it sounds great, and I think it'll suit this track. The interface has two windows, this one up here, click down here for window number 2, and you'll see that the WAV that's in use is displayed in this strip across the middle. If I grab this handle to the side here, and another one over here, I can restrict the amount of that WAV that's in use, and you'll see now that the playheads are bouncing around in this more restricted area. I can change the speed and direction of those playheads with these controls here. Watch the blue, I'll make it slow down, and if I move the knob around to the other side, it changes direction. You'll see that the purple one is static because it's in center position. Let's make that move a little, and we'll slow the orange one down. Now before I do anything else, I want to tie the notes that Fluss is playing back to a scale. I've had a look at the chords in my track, and this section is strictly in F minor, so I'll go to custom scale, select F and minor, and now I'm going to turn down the volume for the purple and blue playheads and turn up the orange a little. Now as I move this orange node across the x-axis, you'll hear the pitches going up and back down, and as I go up the y-axis, we go up the octaves and down. Although I notice actually that for this preset the pitch has been pitched all the way down. Let's just center that. Okay, come back down. Now let's set this orange node off moving. Now you see it doesn't go very far before it stops. Turn down this friction, you'll see it will move for a little longer before it comes to a rest. Now if I turn the friction all the way off, we'll get perpetual motion. There, let's set it going, turn it down and grab the purple node, bring up its volume, set that one moving. Alright, and now the blue. And as they collide into each other, they will change each other's direction. Okay, Let's just mix those a little. Oh, don't do that yet, Blue. I haven't told him about them. I suppose I'll have to tell him about it now. Okay, so if you want these volumes to do their own thing, as Blue is doing right now, as you turn it up or down, you just give it a little extra nudge and it will just move of its own accord. And if you want to restrict how high that volume can go up, go to the top, drag down, and you sort of set a limit with this grey area here. Actually, if I come out of emo mode, go over to this very bright white mode, you'll see that a bit more clearly. So now the volume can only come up this far, and I can do that from the bottom as well. I can restrict how low the volume will be allowed to go, like this. I'm going to do that for all of these volumes. Set some limits. Now set them all moving. There we go. Alright. Now, let's just bring the master volume down a little. Okay, now this control down here we can use to modulate these playheads and the filter here, which I haven't told you about yet. But actually at the moment we're in pan mode, so if you have headphones on, you'll hear that moving from side to side. Switch to scan speed. Let's make this move. Now, let's go to our filter. And currently we have a high pass filter selected. Change the cutoff a little. Okay, I want to show you this phase filter because it sounds awesome. Really cool. We have various filters in here to select from. Bandpass filter can be really effective with this. In fact, if I go like this, yeah, let's go all the way with the resonance and then go mad with this. Okay, stop. You know, that could be quite close to the kind of sound I'm looking for. And we can, you know, we can change how dry and wet the sound going through that filter is. The real kind of money section though here is this grains section here. What I'm going to do, before I start showing you this, I'm just going to make this come to a standstill. And I'm going to turn down this shimmer reverb because it sounds fabulous, but I'm not going to be using this because I want to show you a different effect later on. Now here I can change the direction that the grains play back in. At the moment they are reversed. Let's make them move forwards. Alright, now here we've got smooth grains and here more abrasive, edgy grains. Kind of like the abrasive sound. Now if we bring this down, we've got much smaller grains, more grains, less grains. Spread them out wider, which you'll see better if I add more of them. In fact, let's just lose these bits here and bring in more grains. Now you can see loads of grains widely dispersed. Bring this down and they're focused around the playheads. And these controls will also move on their own as well and can be restricted in the same way as those volumes. Let's go back to emo mode. I like it better. Now we're getting close to the kind of sound that I'm actually looking for. I think I'd like these to move on their own a little as well. There we go. With Fluss, I've created this sound that has a lot of movement in it. All these different parameters moving around over time is going to create a lot of different sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze Fluss over a great number of bars, and then I'm going to listen through what it's created and select the 8 bars that best suit my purposes. Now I'm going to make these 8 bars sound lo-fi and ghostly, like futuristic sounds coming from the past, by introducing wires. First, to the audio I ripped from Fluss. Wires is another Heimbach collaboration, this time coded by Audio Thing. It's a fascinating emulation of a Soviet wire recorder owned by Heimbach. I can't explain to you anywhere near as effectively as Heimbach what this hardware actually is, so I'm not even going to try. Pop over to his channel sometime and let him tell you all about it. We're going to investigate wires with this gorgeous sound from BeatHawk. I switched the app on over here, and I'm going to turn the mix control from dry all the way around to 100% wet because I'm using wires as a send effect. Now you'll hear that that's already affected the sound quite drastically, even though I have everything pretty much switched off or turned down to 0, just as it would if you were running your audio signal through a really old piece of gear, even though everything was switched off. Now over here we have an emulation of what it would sound like if the audio you're hearing had been recorded with the original unit's built-in microphone. And similarly, an emulation of what it would sound like if you were hearing that audio played back through the unit's built-in speaker. And with both engaged, let's turn up the output a little bit. Now, my favourite aspect of this app, let's introduce some wow and flutter. I just think this sounds fabulous. Now, a wire recorder would suffer with frequent, rapid drops in volume, creating this kind of sound. With clicks, we can determine just how much of the degraded signal becomes noisy little clicks. And the tilt EQ will boost the low end over to this side, reducing the top end at the same time, and vice versa. Let's switch on dirty routing and soft clipping. Now, a wire recorder would make all kinds of unpleasant motor noise, and my mouse has just died, so look at the motor control down towards the left hand side of the screen. I hate this mouse. You'll see there the percentage I'm turning it up appearing above the control, and also hiss and hum. Now, if I press stop, listen to what happens. The noise of the unit continues. But if I switch on this envelope down here, now with these controls down here, this spanner control down to the next to the envelope control, I can adjust how quickly that envelope will close off that sound. Okay, now we've got a little bit of charge back in the mouse, and I thought that it might be better to demonstrate the echo section with this little drum loop. Now we switch on the echo section here, and here we determine the delay time, We can sync the delay time to the DAW with this button here, and then when we move this time control, you'll see the divisions appropriately. Let's try it as 16ths. We can increase the number of feedbacks here. Be careful with this control. And here's the volume. For just echoes, of course. If we flick this switch here, this will send just the wet echoes and none of the dry feed to the master output of the unit. Okay, now other features of this app that I must show you. I must not forget to show you this, the playback button. Right, now if I stop wires with this button here and start again. Now let's turn the speed down and press stop. And you can hear it gradually powering down. And similarly, you can make it power up nice and slowly. AB vortEx X is a cut down version of AB vortEx, the desktop plugin, but this reverb still sounds absolutely fabulous and it boasts a great deal of sound design potential despite having a very simple interface. It will do you a very simple and straightforward reverb, but will also get extremely experimental. Now space, this is the distance between the reflections of your reverb. And time, think of this as room size. Viscosity is a fascinating control to use. Think of this as elasticity. With the viscosity turned up, there's a resistance to the changes that you make. I'm going to make this change manually in this viewer here, and listen to how slowly the changes that I'm automating take place. With the viscosity turned down, you can hear those changes taking place immediately. To reset anything that you dial in manually in this visualizer here, double click in the middle. Any reverb sound close to the middle here is going to be quite a simple and straightforward basic reverb. As you move further out to the side, things get a bit wilder and more experimental. If you go far enough, you can begin to create kind of a freeze type effect, as that reverb feeds back into itself. Now, I've found that the way to really get the best out of it is to record the automation. Here's the thing though that I must not forget to tell you. We have a control here for the dry input of the instrument that's coming into this reverb. And we also have a wet control. So there you hear the sound is completely dry. The wet really kind of works more like a volume with having this dry control here as well. But what I've found about this plugin is it actually works better if you're trying to get really experimental and the wet and dry controls make more sense if you use it as an insert. Now at the moment I have it as a send, as would be the typical way to use a reverb. But if we go and look at it as an insert, now if I take down the dry and the wet, and for me, if you're trying to get experimental, it just works much better as an insert. Hours of fun. Alright, this was a good experience. I'm really happy with what I got out of this musically, and I really enjoyed using all of these apps. BeatHawk is still one of my favourites. You can do a great many things with it, and all the sounds you buy within the store inside the app, they always just seem to sound wonderful. I wish that I could send MIDI to it on multiple channels within Cubasis 3. I wish that it was multi-bus out, but still it's one of my favourites. Fluss is marvellous because you don't have to be a musician, you don't have to understand what the parameters do, you don't have to have any idea what you're trying to achieve. You can just literally arse around with it and suddenly you find that's the sound that you needed all along. It's magic. Why is this great? Because there are a great many lo-fi softwares out there at the moment. It's a very popular thing, but this is modelled on one very specific unit, and I think that makes it very special. It brings a real character to whatever you're trying to do with it, much like those apps from GSI that I did a review of. Link up here. But I forgot to tell you that Wires does this.
Geschlagen ohne. Ja, kommt dann bestimmt noch was anderes.
So that's pretty awesome, right? You just touch on that reel and you get to hear some audio that was actually left on the wire recorder that came into Heimbach's possession, and switch it off, just click the little red light. Now that just leaves us with AB vortEx X, which some users have reported is quite heavy on DSP in AUM and other iOS stores, but I've not found that to be the case at all. I'm using it predominantly in Cubasis 3 with multi-core processing on an iPad M1 Pro, and it's not been an issue whatsoever, which led me to think maybe the developer could have ported the full plugin, the desktop version essentially, to iPads with enough power to run it. Is that a thing? I don't know. What are your thoughts? What did you think to these apps? I thought they were all pretty suckless. Do you have some of them? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If this video was useful to you, then please do give me a thumb up and maybe ding my bell and subscribe and all that whatnot. And underneath the video you'll find out all the ways that you can help out the channel, buy merch, join my Patreon, check out my music, look at my website, all that stuff, you know the kind of thing I'm talking about. Check it out down below the video. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be good people, be kind, look after the planet, and don't piss your pants about. See you later.